with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Motorists on the M74 at junction 13 should exercise caution due to a traffic incident. In East Sussex, the A27 eastbound between A22 Polegate West and East has lane closures following a collision. Near Leicestershire, the M69 northbound between junction 1 and the M1 is congested. In Warwickshire, the A446 northbound between the A452 and the M6 faces congestion. Eastbound drivers on the M4 between junction 11 and 10 near Wokingham can expect 1.5-hour delays. And on the trains, there is disruption between Exeter St David's and Newton Abbot and on various Great Western Railway routes. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. A day of grand ceremony in Windsor with a big state dinner coming this evening. But tonight we debate what will happen when it comes to the politics at Chequers tomorrow. We'll also talk about a court ruling which means it's not a policy of one in, one out. It's one in, none out. And we'll talk about the explosion of flags that are going up all over the country. I wondered whether it was going to be a sort of one-week craze. Actually, from what I can see, it's actually taking off in a really massive way. But before all of that and much more, let's get the news with Katie Bowen.
Nigel, thank you and good evening. The headlines at 7 o'clock. The King has welcomed President Donald Trump to Windsor Castle as his second state visit will be marked with a state banquet tonight. The President and First Lady were joined by their Majesties alongside Sir Keir Starmer and Lady Starmer for the beating retreat ceremony which took place on the East Lawn at Windsor Castle. The event culminated in a flypast from the RAF's Red Arrows as proceedings concluded. 4 F-35 military jets were due to take part in the display, although it was reduced due to weather conditions. Also this afternoon, the President has visited the tomb of Queen Elizabeth II to pay his respects to the late monarch, and he laid a wreath at the tomb in St George's Chapel, which he called a great honour. That state banquet will get underway at the castle later this evening. We'll bring you all of those events as they happen here on GB News. Well, away from Windsor, protests against the historic second state visit have been taking place in central London, organised by the Stop Trump coalition. Former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn told GB News national reporter Will Godley why he was attending earlier.
To show there's an alternative to economic division, social division and the rise of racism in our society. It's unusual to have a second state visit to the same person, very strange, and he's not actually meeting anybody on this trip. He's just a choreographed visit for the benefit of American television. We're showing there's a few people here that would like to tell him something different.
And some breaking news this evening. The Home Secretary has branded efforts to frustrate the partial migrant returns deal with France as intolerable and has vowed to appeal yesterday's court decision. The Home Office confirmed that for a third day, no migrants left for France today. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood says she will fight efforts to frustrate removals at every step, confirming that the Home Office will appeal the High Court's decision yesterday to temporarily block the deportation of Eritrean migrants to France. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp said that Shabana Mahmood is, quote, reacting in panic to the collapse of her gimmick returns deal. Back to that state visit, Britain and the US have struck a tech deal that could bring billions of pounds in investment to the UK. Sir Keir Starmer said the agreement represented a general step change in Britain's relationship with the US that would deliver growth, security and opportunity up and down the country. The tech prosperity deal, announced as Mr Trump arrived last night, will see the UK and US cooperate in areas including artificial intelligence, quantum computing and nuclear power. It comes alongside £31 billion of investment in Britain from America's top technology companies, including £22 billion from Microsoft. A man who allegedly sent WhatsApp messages to 5 people within Westminster circles, including MPs, has been charged with blackmail and communications offences. The charge of blackmail relates to alleged unwarranted demands for the phone numbers of up to 12 individuals. 28-year-old Oliver Steadman has also been charged with communications offences in relation to the sending of alleged unsolicited indecent images. Last year, a string of men, mostly working in politics, revealed they had received unsolicited, flirtatious WhatsApp messages, and in some cases explicit images were exchanged. Mr Steadman was suspended as a Labour member after the party was notified of his arrest in June last year. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Nigel.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
I know Donald Trump on a personal basis far better than anybody in British politics. I've known him for quite a long time. I never, ever disclose what we discuss, but I can talk around the subjects, and I can tell you the number of times we've sat and talked about the royal family. He is utterly fascinated, almost on the verge of being obsessed with the British royals. And, of course, he held the British Queen in the most amazing esteem. Here he was a few months back on Air Force One talking about his first state visit.
And this is with Queen Elizabeth right here, who was fantastic, by the way. These images, I mean, who has images like this? And these were relationships too. Look, here's now the king, here's Charles with the guard, and this is the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. It's a piece of history at the highest level. You get to know him so well. This is your favorite president with the Queen.
And on the 8th of September, 2 years ago, the Queen died. We knew she was going to go over the course of the afternoon. The announcement came at about 6:35. I was live on air here in this very chair at 7 o'clock. Guess who called in?
Well, it is a sad day. It's sad all over the world. She was a woman that was just extraordinary, Nigel, just an extraordinary woman.
I know that your mother, who of course, came from the Western Isles in Scotland, and you told me once that, she was a great fan of the Queen, wasn't she?
She was. My mother came from Stornoway, and she loved anything to do with the Queen. She would watch if they had a ceremony, even the smallest of ceremonies. When the Queen was on, my mother would be there watching. She was a tremendous fan. She was a tremendous fan indeed.
And here he was looking forward to Windsor, to the ceremonies today and the state banquet this evening.
This one's at Windsor. They've never used Windsor Castle for this before. They used Buckingham Palace. And I don't want to say one's better than the other, but they say Windsor Castle is the ultimate, right?
I must admit, I did discuss Windsor with him a couple of weeks ago, and he seems very pleased to be there. Now, we've had a day of great ceremony, but tonight we'll talk a little bit about that, but mostly about what happens tomorrow at Chequers when we start to talk politics with the Americans. Give us your thoughts, please. Tweet #Farage on GB News or email farage@gbnews.com. I'm joined in the studio by Sir Michael Ellis, who I think we're now going to call a constitutional expert, who's been all over GB News and other channels today, and by Jeff Hoon, former Defence Secretary under Tony Blair. But first, down the line from Windsor, I'm joined by Niall Gardner, former Margaret Thatcher advisor and director of the Heritage Foundation. You can see that Donald was beaming throughout all of it.
Yes, Nigel. Thanks for having me on the show today. And I think this has been a great day. I think President Trump has been extremely pleased with all of the developments so far. He loves and adores the royal family. He adores Britain and the British people. He's the most pro-British US president of the modern era. And I think today is a celebration, really, of the strength, the enduring strength and power of the US-UK special relationship, the beating heart of the free world. So I think it's been a great day for President Trump, but also as well for the royal family and for Great Britain and the United States.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, Niall. If we look ahead to tomorrow, there are issues around Ukraine. There is, without doubt, genuine concern within the American administration about free speech. If an Irish comedic writer can be arrested at Heathrow Airport, what's to stop a US tech giant being arrested at Heathrow Airport? And also the issues around trade, the issues around steel and, well, as you would call it, aluminum. Any thoughts as to what happens tomorrow?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a significant meeting, of course, with the Prime Minister tomorrow. A very major ideological disagreements. I do think the President's going to press Keir Starmer on the issue of freedom of speech, which is under threat in the UK. It's a big issue of concern for US Conservatives. And also, I think he's going to discuss the issue of mass migration into the UK as well, which in many respects threatens the very future of the United Kingdom itself. So those two issues, I think, will be prominent on the agenda, in addition to trade, tariffs. I do hope the President will raise the issue of the Chagos Island surrender by Keir Starmer, which is an absolute outrage. And I think the Chagos deal with Mauritius is incredibly dangerous for the future of the US military base at Diego Garcia. And I do hope the President's going to intervene on this. And I think that otherwise this will be a huge strategic win for communist China. But President Trump can intervene at the 11th hour to stop this from happening. And if he does that, I think that would be greatly to the benefit not only of the United States, but also to Great Britain as well. This is a terrible deal, Nigel. I think that really threatens the future of Diego Garcia itself.
I have to say, I'm very pleased, Niall, to hear you say that. But I've been told that kind of the trouble is that you've got the priorities of Ukraine, the Middle East, and that somehow the Americans think, well, we've got Diego Garcia, no one's going to budge us.
Yeah, I think that, it's significant that the State Department, of course, signed off on this deal months ago, but the White House never did, and there was never a statement from the White House actually endorsing the Chagos deal. So I do hope that at the very last minute, the US President can intervene. I think that Keir Starmer has knifed not only Britain in the back, but also the United States in the back over this terrible deal. It's a surrender deal, and I think that President Trump can still intervene and stop it. So I very much hope he will do.
Strong words. Niall, thank you very much indeed. You've got to say, Jeff, for a Prime Minister in trouble, opinion poll ratings collapsing, 71% of the country think he's doing a rotten job, desperate problems. I mean, Trump arriving is good news for him, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I think it demonstrates that despite their very different personalities, they do get on very well together.
Yeah. And he's played it well, hasn't he? I mean, we showed him and used the clip of the letter, the invitation. I mean, let's give Starmer credit for this. He has organised this and done it very well.
Absolutely, and I think it will be enormously to the benefit of Britain, its economy, jobs and trade. And those are the things that they will be emphasising in their conversations tomorrow.
Yeah. Michael, on the ceremonial side,
I mean, I totally agree.
Perfect.
And it was perfect, and it really was a unique occasion. And it makes you proud to be British. I mean, certainly it's one of those occasions, a state visit, done in this way, done to such perfection. Our our armed forces on display, the whole panoply of state, and it does make you proud to be British, and it's what a show. And there's more to come with the white tie dinner this evening, but there's actually a political dimension even to that, because the value of being able to put that on for a visitor like President Trump will have positive political ramifications. President Trump, as you know, Nigel, personal relationships matter to him. He has a deep reverence for the King, as he did for the late Queen, and I think that makes a difference to him. If he likes someone, his personal relationship with that person reflects on how he deals with that person's country. And I think Keir Starmer benefits from that. I would agree that, you know, Starmer has played that well. He knows it's an asset to have the King and to have the availability of a state visit. That, I think, is going to operate to the UK's benefit. And I think the King is also someone who recognises just how important this is. And he did put his charm on today, as President Trump has said.
No. I mean, I agree with all of that. And of course, Jeff, you know, Trump's a businessman. It's a handshake, look in the eye. If he likes you, he likes you. But it doesn't get us around this free speech thing. And, you know, I went to Congress a couple of weeks ago to talk about this. And I repeat the point that I made earlier. An American businessman, for what he said on social media in America, could be arrested at Heathrow Airport tomorrow. That is going to be a bone of contention, because it seems the government really believes in the Online Safety Act.
But free speech in this country runs through every aspect of our constitutional arrangements. It has been a tradition of this country for hundreds of years, but it's still reflected in the decisions of judges day in, day out. So I think there have been incidents that people have regretted, but nevertheless they are isolated incidents. Compared to almost any other country in the world, we have the freedom to express our views almost unlimited in a way that is not the case elsewhere.
But not to the extent that the Americans do, for whom the First Amendment, you know, is very much a part of what they are. You know, the Online Safety Act, the censorship that we begin to see online, this is a clash of culture. Normally our cultures are aligned. This is a clash, isn't it?
I don't believe so. I think what is happening is the law is having to catch up with technological change, and that has been extraordinarily difficult for those who frame the legislation. And I think we are edging towards a solution, but I recognise in the process there will be some difficulties.
I think it's been going wrong, Nigel. I think free speech has been going wrong. The reality is that, you know, there is an Overton window in this. Things do move. They do shift. The exercise of discretion by the police hasn't operated well in the last couple of years in particular. We've seen examples of two-tier justice where some people get away with blue murder on the streets of London on a Saturday, for example, the hate marches, and then other people don't get away with making some sort of joke and are arrested at the airport.
You know, Jeff, when a former Attorney General talks about two-tier justice, there's a problem.
I recognise some people see that as a problem, but I'm not sure. But I'm not sure that there are enough examples to suggest that somehow this country is running away from our strong tradition of freedom of expression. There are illustrations, but I don't think it's right to dwell on those as if they are somehow typical.
Thousands of people, since the Equalities Act, since the sort of introduction of hate laws, literally thousands of people have had the knock at the door, because it's a non-crime hate incident and the police tell them don't do it again. I mean, this is stuff that was brought in right at the end of the last Labour government, with, I don't doubt, the best of intentions, but it's all gone too far.
But one of the provisions of a number of international documents protecting human rights is that those rights should not be used to undermine the rights of other people. There is a balance necessarily in any constitutional arrangement, and that's the balance that I think this country has always got right.
Jeff's right, there is a balance. Of course, there always has to be a balance, but
you can't shout fire in a theatre. You can't incite violence.
Exactly right. But you know, what worries me is that the exercise of discretion has meant that that balance has skewed, you know, that the dial has moved in some cases in the wrong way. You see, the problem is it's easier for the police to deal with someone who's committed an offence online, as they see it, with a tweet or something of that sort, and it's much easier, rather like a driving offence. You've got the documentary evidence, you've got the picture evidence, it's an easy hit for the police. And so you're seeing an increased number of prosecutions for online offences voices because I think it's easier for them to do that, and that's having a reflection on free speech.
No, that is true.
But how many of those prosecutions have actually resulted in convictions? Because the case that a lot of people keep citing of this man in London who was prosecuted, he was acquitted. He was acquitted by a British jury.
It's pretty
That's
painful.
the ultimate safeguard of our freedom.
Yes, but to have to go through that whole process and your life in ruins for a period of time is no fun. And the Lucy Connolly case, well, you know, 31 months in prison for a deeply intemperate tweet, which she recognised and got rid of 3 hours later. I don't know.
Well, the difference there, of course, is that she pleaded guilty.
Well, because she was told she'd be kept on remand.
I think her tweet was wrong, but the sentence was successful.
Yeah, I think so.
The sentence was successful.
We'll debate this again and again and again over the course of the next couple of years. But in a moment, we hear so many stories, don't we? Jim Ratcliffe, not going to invest $3 billion in Britain, going to invest in the US. Big investment companies selling FTSE, buying American stocks. But President Trump comes with some big investment into tech and AI, and in particular, there's a proposed nuclear deal. In a moment, we'll be joined by a nuclear policy expert to work out, is this a good deal for Britain or a really good deal for the USA?
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show Live starts Monday night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I asked you what happens at Chequers tomorrow when they get to discuss the politics. James says, what I would like is for Donald Trump to hold Starmer's feet to the fire on freedom of speech, especially given your Lucy Connolly interview yesterday. Starmer would squirm. I was speculating, actually, that the debate we just had in the studio could be very similar to the one that happens at Chequers tomorrow. And another James says, I sincerely hope the President asks the Prime Minister about the state of our borders and free speech tomorrow. Free speech, a very big issue with viewers and listeners to this channel. We used to lead the world in nuclear energy. No, genuinely, we really, really did. But over the years, we've got worse and worse at it. And it seems we have massive delays, huge bureaucracy, and the cost of it is extraordinary. I'm going to show you this graph you can look at on your screens. And it shows you that the South Koreans can do nuclear energy without any concessions on safety for 25% of the price that we do in this country. I'm joined by a friend of the programme, Malcolm Grimston, nuclear policy and power market policy analyst. Malcolm, you know, Trump is coming, talking about a big deal. Just tell our viewers exactly what's being proposed here.
I mean, I think part of it is the West had hegemony over nuclear for many years. Over the last 2-3 decades, we've ceded this to China, to South Korea, to a lesser extent to Russia. And I think there's a great recognition that we don't want to be dependent on Russian gas more than we can help, that there are problems with intermittent sources of energy like wind and solar, and that nuclear ticks all of the boxes and is low carbon as well. So I think there's a great growing interest right the way across the world, but particularly in the West. Can we regain that lead that we had in nuclear technology?
Well, that's fine, but is this... I mean, look, we welcome investment into Britain, particularly at a time when so much money has been leaving. But is this the Americans taking over our nuclear industry?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure that's altogether a bad thing in some ways, in that the Americans developed the two major technologies, the pressurised water reactor and the boiling water reactor, that we use all over the world. They have enormous expertise. So have we. We've some of the best university nuclear courses in the world, yes, at Imperial, at Manchester, Birmingham, many other places. It's a very good match between us and the States because, of course, they can bring a level of finance that perhaps is a little bit difficult given the public finances in the UK at the moment.
reason I asked that question is because the share price of Rolls-Royce has rocketed in the last few years. They've got good at quite a lot of things. And one of them is we're told these small modular nuclear reactors are on the way, that Rolls-Royce are a pioneering company. And my concern is, are we shutting Rolls-Royce out of the equation in favour of American companies?
We've been desperately slow in supporting Rolls-Royce. And to be fair to the present government, in June they finally announced that Rolls-Royce was one of the two companies that would receive some considerable government support. They've been doing small reactors and putting them in submarines since the 50s and 60s. We know that this technology works. It's not been used for power in an enormous way yet, so that's the next stage. But the key, I think, is moving away from looking at nuclear as being building projects, where most of the work is unique to the site, and turning them into manufacturing projects, where you batch build the reactor at a central site.
So the same type of reactor would go to
indeed, and then you take them out, ideally in hundreds, if not thousands of them, to the site where they're going to be used, and just simply put them up there. It would be crazy if we tried to construct the cars in every car showroom in the country, and I think much the same applies to nuclear.
Jeff, I mean, we haven't really invested in nuclear for a very, very long time. You guys had big majorities, powerful positions. What went wrong?
Well, I'm delighted, first of all, that Rolls-Royce are the preferred bidder, not least as somebody who comes from Derby. I think there'll be tremendous opportunities for employment there. And, of course, as a former Defence Secretary, I dealt regularly with Rolls-Royce because Rolls-Royce assist in the powering of nuclear submarines. And they have significant expertise in those small-scale nuclear plants. Now, as I understand it, the technology for the future will not be exactly the same as that which powers nuclear submarines. But for 60 years, nuclear submarines have sailed safely around the world, both American and British boats, and therefore that is a technology that we ought to be developing.
So this proposal from Trump tomorrow with Starmer is good news?
Absolutely, providing, of course, that Britain gets a share. And I think what's important about the negotiations and discussions tomorrow is to ensure that Britain's interests are protected. President Trump's often been criticised for putting America first. Every president that I have ever had to deal with has put the United States first. This is not something new. And in defence in particular, we have to ensure that Britain's interests are properly protected. It's always a very tough negotiation with the US over defence matters.
Yeah, I can hear our listeners now saying, what a shame British Prime Ministers don't put
I was
Britain
just going to
first.
say, our British Prime Minister should put Britain first. You know, these things are not, they're not contrary to each other. What has worried me in this sphere, especially on nuclear, is our predilection in this country to get ourselves bogged down in bureaucracy and quangos and quangocracy. And I think many countries have this problem, but we do seem to have it writ large. Is it one of those things that really causes a block in nuclear for us?
Well,
the generic design assessment, as it's called, for Rolls-Royce SMR is taking 4 years. That's plenty of time for other countries to get a whole industry up and running. One of the many reasons for the South Korean success, but part of it is a very clear and fit-for-purpose regulatory regime, a government which has been supportive pretty much on and off, despite some strange changes at the top over the years. And because of that, the supply chain feels really confident in investing. Then you get the cost of the supply chain coming down, and the whole project.
So there's no compromise on safety. It's an issue. Everyone wants to be safe in this sphere.
Cost and time.
It's cost and time.
I mean, Sizewell was going to cost, what, 15 billion? What's it now, 38?
Yeah, we're in that sort of region.
I mean, it's just astonishing.
But I think there's an explanation for that, and one of the explanations is that we do these as one-offs. One of the advantages of the modular design is we get a consistent design that can then be used over and over again without having to go to the time and trouble of redesigning every individual nuclear
plant.
plant.
I agree with that, but part of the problem is we have a system where one person can say, you know, because there's a butterfly they've seen or a bat or something of that sort, one person is able to block a multi-billion-pound arrangement through our planning systems and our regulatory systems. That's something that needs to be looked at.
And the government have made clear that they're going to address that, and that's part of what we've talked about as a party.
Well, when we hear these things, we cheer, but whether they actually happen is another issue. Sort of final thoughts on this when it comes to nuclear energy, and in particular small modular nuclear reactors. There's a famous quote from Nick Clegg in 2010. There's no point bothering with nuclear energy, it'll take 10 years. How long would it take us to really get going and to have fresh nuclear generation of a significant size?
Well, if you look at the French experience in the 70s, the Swedish experience in the 70s, the French, in effect, electrified the whole of their electricity industry in less than 20 years by choosing an American design, by Frenchifying it, and then by building it by the dozen. And they ended up, through the crisis of energy we've had, of being in a very strong position because practically all of their electricity doesn't depend on imports.
How long would it take for us to do this?
So we could do that in 15 years if we really put our backs to it, of getting towards 50 or plus percent with that. But actually, with the new technologies coming along, even that might be pessimistic, because if we did get a production line with these things rolling off them in the same way, they could be deployed very quickly.
As ever, Malcolm, thank you for coming in, sharing your expertise, and it's a very, very big, strong, positive message. Just think, folks, no more of those really horrible, ugly wind turbines. In a moment, one in, one out. This was the great cry from the government. Turns out it's one in and none out, apart from a plane load of journalists.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
If you're thinking of avoiding the unsettled weather in the UK and heading overseas, you'll find very warm weather in Spain, across the Canaries, as well as Madeira, unusually warm for the time of year. Portugal likewise, but some showery rain affecting southern parts of Portugal. Meanwhile, plenty of sunshine through Spain into the Alps, much of Italy as well, turning hotter here over the next few days. Staying breezy for Greece, particularly the islands, but most places enjoying long spells of sunshine.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. During the next 24 hours we can expect misty and damp weather to continue in the south whilst it stays mild. Further north, clearer, fresher but also very breezy as this area of low pressure moves into the north of Scotland. Isobars tighten, strong winds overnight along with heavy showers and longer spells of rain for the Northern Isles, the Outer Hebrides into the Northwest Highlands. But for the rest of Scotland, breezy, yes, however, All that combined with clear spells, as well as Northern Ireland, Northern England seeing clear spells at times overnight. In the south, Wales, across the Midlands, the south of England, it's going to be a misty night with a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, but a mild start to Thursday with temperatures of 17 or 18 first thing. Now, the rain and drizzle across the south of England will ease through the morning. It will push further north into Wales, but for Northern England, Northern Ireland, as well as for much of the south and east of Scotland, plenty of bright weather first thing. However, there will be a keen breeze, and that strong wind across the north and northwest of Scotland will continue to drive heavy showers and longer spells of rain in as the day goes on, but those showers becoming fewer later on from the west. The rain in the south will move north, and so after a bright start to the day, Northern England, Southern Scotland, Northern Ireland turn wet into the afternoon. The rain not quite reaching the central belt, 18 Celsius here, but it's very warm in the south as skies brighten, 23 or 24 Celsius. An even warmer day expected on Friday in the southeast, with temperatures reaching the mid-20s in places. Likewise, it's bright but cool across much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, and for parts of northwest England, but in between there will be spells of wet weather through Friday, and that rain will be fairly extensive as we start the weekend before gradually getting drier next week.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No issue in British politics provokes such upset and anger as illegal immigration, especially those crossing the English Channel in small boats, and we've seen a summer of it, haven't we, with the Bell Hotel in Epping, and so on. But 1 year on from his landslide victory, Keir Starmer realised he really had to do something about it. Here he was, speaking 1 year on.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks, and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally.
Well, I must confess there were one or two of us that shook our heads at the time as we debated it on this programme and elsewhere. I wondered whether it really would happen. Well, there were 2 flights booked for this week. They've both gone, the Air France flights. The first with not a single illegal immigrant on it. And the second, the journalists had found out which aeroplane they were supposed to be on, and not a single illegal immigrant or false asylum seeker, choose your terminology, on the flight either. And this is all because, yeah, you guessed it, of a High Court judgment, and it's all to do with a 25-year-old Eritrean who claims that he was trafficked into this country. And furthermore, if he was sent back to France, he'd face destitution. What I found completely extraordinary were representatives of the Conservative Party going round today saying, isn't it dreadful, when exactly the same thing happened to them, didn't it, Sir Michael?
But all I can say is...
I mean, you were there!
Nigel, you know those journalists you said, were they allowed back? That's what I want to know. Look, the fact is, this is embarrassing.
One in, none out.
It's totally...
But Rwanda was embarrassing too.
Well, yeah, and Rwanda never really got a chance, did it? Because when Labour came in, they didn't really let that... didn't work to fruition.
Let's stop this nonsense.
But,
let's stop this nonsense.
I don't think it had a chance, to be fair.
There was, hang on a second, there was an aeroplane on the tarmac with people in it about to go to Rwanda, and at 10 p.m. at night, a judge in Strasbourg stopped it.
Yeah, and the phrase pyjama injunctions is one I think I had a hand in inventing, by the way.
Right.
So I'm agreeing with you. Look, the Tory government basically had major problems. This is an embarrassment. We don't... Look, my view is, and I've written about this, we don't have an aristocracy running this country or a meritocracy. We have what I call a lexocracy. The lawyers are running the ship at the moment. Whether it's a Tory government or a Labour government, we're seeing here that they can't get things done because the legal system, the court system, is blocking it. Now, this doesn't happen in other countries. It doesn't happen in Greece. It doesn't happen in Italy to the same extent. We've got this system of judicial review which is out of control, and other aspects of our legal system, including the interpretation of conventions and the ECHR and all of that, it's causing a legal logjam. Politicians have lost control. It doesn't matter what political hue they are, they've lost control, and that's because they've allowed the courts to take control.
But when Starmer said this, Jeff, he must have known that these legal challenges would mean that no one left. He must have known it, so why did he do it?
I'm sure the Home Office anticipated, and Number 10 as well, that there would be a legal challenge. I looked at the judge who said this, and he said that this required a short delay, an assessment of what was being claimed, which could be done in a matter of days, as I understand it. There's no doubt that these legal challenges will come up. They have to be dealt with. But actually, the government have put in place a whole series of measures to ensure that these illegal immigrants can be removed, because the real challenge at the moment is getting people out of hotels, getting people out of paid-for accommodation, so that the rest of the country can see properly that these matters are being dealt with fairly but speedily.
Unfortunately, I don't think they're going to work. I'm afraid I don't think it's going to work.
But speeding up the process is crucial.
Well,
you know that.
But if you speed the process up and just let them all stay anyway, what difference does that make?
No, but that's not the point. The point is that some of them are entitled to stay, but we have to have a proper process for determining who should stay and who should
go. But Jeff, one in, one out. Now, maybe I've got my maths wrong. One comes, goes back, and another one comes. It still means that every single person that crosses the channel is plus one coming into this country who we've got to pay for.
No, that's not the case. What is proposed is that someone will be assessed in France as being likely to qualify. They can be admitted because they satisfy the rules.
But it's still, for everyone that crosses the channel, one more person.
But we then remove someone who's not so entitled. And it seems to me that that is a process.
So if 30,000 cross the channel next year, we still increase the population by 30,000.
What we have to do is to make sure that those 30,000 are dealt with speedily.
It's all very well saying that. I'm afraid
that was the position.
Both Tories and Labour have not succeeded, though. And
20 years ago, when you guys were in government, you were actually quite able to deport people without much obstacle. Things have changed, haven't they?
Nothing's going to work until the courts are brought under control.
The specific problem at the present time are these large numbers of people in hotels and other accommodation. They have to be dealt with. They have to be dealt with according to the law. Now, one of the reasons why there are so many people in hotels and accommodation is because the last government deliberately, consciously slowed down the process, created a huge backlog that has to be dealt with. The government have already put in place proposals to deal with that backlog.
Does it matter who's in government if the courts are out of control with their interpretation of a series of treaties that may have been well-intentioned three-quarters of a century ago, but are out of date now?
It's all about interpretation. The Refugee Convention is 1951. The words haven't changed. The interpretation of it has. Same thing with ECHR.
And the world's changed.
And the world has changed. Look, nothing is going to work. I tell you this now. Nothing is going to work until the courts are brought under control. Judicial review is out of control.
And funny enough, in America, Trump got... I mean, isn't it interesting that in America this was a major part of Trump's re-election? I'm going to stop people illegally coming across the southern border in millions, and he has done it.
But President Trump faces a whole series of cases about his powers, the way that he's used them. I taught constitutional law in the United States, and I know that Congress has the power.
Yeah.
He has powers under emergency legislation, and they are being challenged. They're being challenged in courts right across the United States.
But he has stopped the people coming.
Well, he's stopped the people coming subject to those court cases being resolved.
Well.
The idea, and I find it a little amusing, Nigel, you know the United States, but the idea that the United States is not a litigious society is very entertaining.
That's a very fair point. But it just goes to show, and he may have problems down the line. I'll be surprised if there aren't some problems, but it just shows you what political will can do, doesn't it?
Oh, and political courage. The actual willingness to actually say something a little bit controversial, push the line here. I'm afraid I take the view, as a former Attorney General and someone who's been in criminal legal practice, I do take the view that until someone exercises political courage to bring the legal appeal system under control, it's out of control at the moment, no one is going to succeed in delivering on the promise that the British people have been expecting from their political parties for a couple of decades.
Yeah, and
it ain't going to happen.
And being promised again and again and again, and that's why there's so much.
You've got to take the bull by the horns. Yeah. Someone's got to take the bull by the horns.
I agree totally.
And that's what needs to happen.
Well, I wrote a piece for the Sun newspaper today about the flags going up. I thought maybe it was a one-week craze. No. The flags are increasing, multiplying in numbers. We'll be joined in a moment by one of the organisers for Flag Force UK. And we'll see whether the panel agrees with me that this is the biggest collective two fingers up to virtually the entirety of the British establishment, I think, that I've ever seen.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
the flags are going up everywhere. It's all over the country. Yeah, not just the paintings on the road, but actually flags up on lampposts and goodness knows what. The numbers, goodness knows. It feels like millions of flags have gone up. Someone's manufacturing them very, very quickly. Someone's paying for them. I wrote this in the Sun newspaper today. We've had enough of our country and its history being trashed. We've had enough of being called far right simply because we believe in tough border controls and our national identity. We've had enough of gutless leaders who put the will of foreign courts above our national interest. Patriotism is back. It's here to stay. Raise the flags. Well, that's what I think and I believe. And I'm joined down the line by Joseph Moulton, organiser of Flag Force UK. Joseph, this is just, it's taking off, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the scale that it's kind of spread across the country has really been unprecedented. I don't think we've seen anything like it in modern British politics. I mean, really what it is it's a protest movement, but it's a protest movement that people are doing every single day on their streets, you know, in their local communities. And it's really shown people that there's far more people like them in their local community who feel the same, who are sick of the bad policy making from Westminster. That social contract that we've had there for the government to really kind of listen to the people. We've had two elections, you know, the Brexit referendum and the 2019 election of Boris Johnson, where the people really wanted a stricter migration policy.
Yep.
Unfortunately, they just weren't listened to. I think that's one of the main driving causes behind this.
Yeah, and Joseph, who's paying for all these flags?
Yeah, well, initially we were just paying it for it ourselves, and then you know, most of the flagging groups have local GoFundMes where they've been able to self-finance them. So I mean, it's been crowdfunded from the local people.
Quite extraordinary. And Joseph, just finally, for our viewers, are you a knuckle-dragging, far-right extremist that hates anybody whose family have not been here for at least 400 years?
No, of course not. And those sort of allegations are exactly why we're out there, and we need to kind of have our voices heard.
I agree. Thank you. Great campaign. Well done. So what we get from our Prime Minister is apparently if we like the flag, we're all plastic patriots. Oh. He's just getting this wrong, the Prime Minister, isn't he? His tone, his thoughts on it, he's just getting it wrong.
What the Prime Minister was clearly trying to do is to draw a distinction between using a flag in a proper way to support this country and using a flag to intimidate people. Now, no one can object to the use of the Union flag. I am British.
Or the Cross of St George.
Well, that's what I want to come to, Nigel. I am British. That's my flag, and I don't believe that it's possible to challenge anyone for using that. What I'm not so sure about is the Cross of St George. The Cross of St George is an English flag. Now, when England play football, perfectly right that that should be displayed. When England play rugby, why are people displaying the Cross of St George and claiming that that is somehow patriotic?
Because of the... I mean, you're obviously in the Emily Thornberry camp. You know, you look down your nose at people that fly...
On the contrary, I don't look down my nose at anybody.
Well, she did 10 years ago, well, and it didn't go down very well.
Nigel, that isn't fair. I do not look down my nose at anyone. Right. What I'm trying to make is a distinction between the flag of a British citizen, which is a Union flag, and the Cross of St George, which is a flag of England.
And what's wrong
that's fine.
And what's wrong with Englishness?
Well, because, and there's nothing wrong with Englishness, but what is wrong is English nationalism. We are a united country.
I see. So
I do not believe that it is necessary to emphasise nationalism.
Jeff. You're part of a government that gave vent to Scottish nationalism. You were part of a government that gave vent to Welsh nationalism, part of a government that compromised with Irish nationalism, but we can't be English nationalists.
No, we can be English and we can be proud of being England when England are playing football or England are playing rugby, but I don't believe that it's appropriate to put up flags of the Cross of St George in substitution for the flag that we owe our allegiance to, which is the Union flag, because we are British.
Well, I feel that I can be English and British. I see no contradiction. I
see no contradiction, but the reality is people are putting up the Cross of St George rather than the Union flag.
I think
that is the worry.
Well, I think both are going up, to be fair. But I understand one. It started off with the Cross of St George more. I do have a Cross of St George waistcoat, which I do wear to sporting occasions.
I've got cufflinks. Yeah, I think I've worn them on your show. I've got Cross of St George cufflinks.
It's very interesting, isn't it? It seems to me that we tolerate nationalism in all the far parts of the United Kingdom, You think English nationalism is dreadful?
Totally right, Nigel. I'm afraid I disagree with Jeff here. I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with the Cross of St George. There's nothing wrong with the Union flag. I think, I'm actually delighted to see it around and more than it has been in recent years. But I think it was sort of culturally almost, warped away from what it should have been. It was, people were accused and, considered to be somehow behaving badly if they displayed the Union flag or the Cross of St George. It's totally outrageous.
Isn't what's happening here?
It's our flag.
Isn't what's happening here, with millions of these flags going up all around the country, that actually ordinary decent people are reclaiming the flag as something we can be proud of?
Well, absolutely, so long as it is the Union flag.
Is your worry, Jeff, that Englishness doesn't somehow have the same level of inclusion as Britishness? Is it that?
I entirely agree with your point that sometimes we are English and sometimes we're British, sometimes we're European, because it depends on...
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, I know you would. But for example, in the Ryder Cup, I will support Europe.
Yeah.
Because that is part of the organisation that I belong to. I belong to Britain. I accept I'm English. But at the same time, I don't believe that it's appropriate in this day and age to be talking about nationalism. I'm not a supporter of Scottish nationalism. I'm not a supporter of Welsh nationalism. I believe very strongly in the United Kingdom, and that's something I think we should be emphasising.
But don't you agree that actually devolution with Tony Blair fuelled Scottish nationalism?
I don't believe so. Scottish nationalism came first.
It really did.
Scottish nationalism was there. I was taken to Scotland by a political friend of mine to see the level of nationalism that was developing. And I was told, and I accepted the argument from someone who knew about Scotland, that the way to resolve that was to have a separate assembly for Scotland.
But I think the opposite. I think the opposite happened, but hey, that's by the way. And by the way, I've confronted Scottish nationalism face-to-face in the street in Edinburgh. It was terrifying. And the police came along, did a marvellous job. They locked me in a pub for my safety. It was quite an afternoon.
But this is the thing, Nigel.
Final thought on Englishness, please.
But look, I mean, I think one can be proud of being English. I don't think one has to treat it separately from Britishness. If somebody wants to wear or use the flag of St George, the English flag, I don't see any difference there. Why people view that pejoratively when somehow it's okay to be a Welsh nationalist and a Scottish nationalist and they call their political parties nationalism, but with England it's somehow a dirty word for some people, particularly people on the left. Keir Starmer making that remark today, I think is simply just wrong and out of touch with the British people.
I thank my panel for lots of energetic debate. Now, attending a Jeremy Corbyn rally in Parliament Square has been Jacob Rees-Mogg, who joins me down the line now.
Well, yes, not quite. I have been able to get past the Jeremy Corbyn rally so that I can talk to the state of the nation about the state of the special relationship, which I think is such an interesting question because everyone speaks the right words, says it's very special, but what real difference does it make to the UK? What benefit do we get from it? What benefit does the US get from it? Or is it just the politeness that you use that you come up with when you've got such an exciting state visit going on with all the King's horses and all the King's men, which may occur in the middle of the programme because I think the banquet, the state banquet, which I'm surprised you're not at unless you're hurrying into White Tie in a moment, will be going on shortly.
Jacob, that'll be marvellous. I'm not at the state banquet because, well, Keir Starmer doesn't think I should be there. There you are. I've been snubbed, but there you are. I can live with it. I'll go out for a pint instead. Jacob coming up in a moment. First, though, let's have a look at the all-important weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. During the next 24 hours we can expect misty and damp weather to continue in the south whilst it stays mild. Further north, clearer, fresher but also very breezy as this area of low pressure moves into the north of Scotland. Isobars tighten, strong winds overnight along with heavy showers and longer spells of rain for the Northern Isles, the Outer Hebrides into the Northwest Highlands. But for the rest of Scotland, breezy, yes, however, all that combined with clear spells, as well as Northern Ireland, Northern England seeing clear spells at times overnight. In the south, Wales, across the Midlands, the south of England, it's going to be a misty night with a lot of low cloud, outbreaks of light rain and drizzle, but a mild start to Thursday with temperatures of 17 or 18 first thing. Now, the rain and drizzle across the south of England will ease through the morning. It will push further north into Wales, but for northern England, Northern Ireland, as well as for much of the south and east of Scotland, plenty of bright weather first thing. However, there will be a keen breeze, and that strong wind across the north and northwest of Scotland will continue to drive heavy showers and longer spells of rain in as the day goes on, but those showers becoming fewer later on from the west. The rain in the south will move north, and so after a bright start to the day, northern England, southern